Hello and welcome. Did you know that the story of Germany stretches back over 3,000 years? It's a tale not just of castles and kings, but of ancient tribes, epic clashes with empires, and a long, winding road to becoming the nation we know today. Let's journey back in time, long before the modern borders were drawn, to uncover the deep roots of German history. Our story begins around 3,000 years ago. Picture vast forests and winding rivers, a landscape that would eventually be called Germania. This land wasn't empty. It was home to numerous Germanic tribes. These weren't a single, unified people, but a collection of distinct groups like the Carusi, the Swabi, and many others, each with their own culture, leaders, and traditions. They were farmers and fierce warriors, slowly expanding from their northern homelands in Scandinavia and the North German plain, pushing south into the heart of Central Europe. Their world was one of wood, iron, and a deep connection to the natural world. This initial migration and settlement period laid the very first stones of what would, centuries later, become a nation. As these tribes moved south, they eventually came face to face with a superpower, the Roman Empire. The Rhine and Danube rivers became more than just waterways. They became a massive frontier, a line separating two vastly different worlds. For centuries, the relationship between the Germanic tribes and Rome was a complex dance of trade, conflict, and cultural exchange. Romans wanted amber, furs, and soldiers for their auxiliary armies. In return, Germanic leaders received Roman goods like wine, glass, and silver, which became symbols of status and power, but it wasn't all peaceful. The Romans saw the tribes as barbarians, and their attempts to conquer Germania led to some of history's most famous battles. Perhaps the most legendary of these was the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest in the year 09 AD. A Roman army of 3 legions, nearly 20,000 men, marched deep into Germania. Led by the governor Verus, what Verus didn't know was that he was being led into an elaborate trap by a man he trusted. Arminius, a chieftain of the Carusi tribe. Arminius had served in the Roman army, understood their tactics, and used that knowledge against them. He united several Germanic tribes, and, in the dense, rainy forest, they ambushed the Romans. The result was a catastrophic defeat for Rome. 3 entire legions were wiped out. This victory was a defining moment. It halted Roman expansion east of the Rhine and became a powerful symbol of Germanic resistance and identity for centuries to come. It proved that these so-called barbarians could not be easily conquered. In the centuries following the Teutoburg Forest, the political landscape of Germania began to shift. The constant conflict and interaction with Rome forced the tribes to adapt. Smaller groups began to band together, forming larger, more powerful confederations for mutual defense and conquest. This is when we see the rise of names that echo through history: the Franks, the Goths, the Vandals, and the Saxons. These weren't just tribes anymore. They were proto-kingdoms, powerful forces that would play a crucial role in the final chapters of the Western Roman Empire. The Franks, for instance, settled in what is now France and Western Germany. Laying the groundwork for the Carolingian Empire, the Goths would famously sack Rome itself. This era of migration and consolidation, often called the Migration Period, completely redrew the map of Europe. Out of this crucible of change, one figure emerged who would tower over the rest: Charlemagne, or Charles the Great. As king of the Franks, he united a vast territory that included modern-day France, Germany, and parts of Italy. In the year 800, on Christmas Day, he was crowned emperor by the Pope in Rome, reviving the idea of a Western Roman Empire. His Carolingian Empire was a beacon of relative stability and learning in a chaotic age. He promoted education, standardized laws, and established a political center in Aachen, a city in modern Germany. Although his empire would eventually fragment after his death, Charlemagne's reign was a pivotal moment. He created a shared political and cultural identity in Western and Central Europe, a legacy that directly influenced the development of both France and Germany. For Germany, the eastern part of his empire became the foundation of the Holy Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire, founded in the 10th century, is one of the most complex entities in European history. It was a patchwork of hundreds of territories, duchies, principalities, free cities, and bishoprics all loosely gathered under a single emperor. It was, as the saying goes, not very holy, not Roman, and not quite an empire in the modern sense. For nearly 1,000 years, this decentralized structure defined the German lands. Power was fragmented, shared between the emperor and countless local princes. While it prevented the formation of a strong, unified German state like France or England, it also fostered incredible cultural and economic diversity. Cities like Hamburg and Lübeck thrived as part of the Hanseatic League, a powerful trading alliance. Universities were founded, and a rich tapestry of local customs, dialects, and traditions flourished. This long era of fragmentation finally began to change in the 19th century. The Napoleonic Wars had shattered the old Holy Roman Empire, and a new wave of nationalism was sweeping across Europe. People began to think of themselves not just as Bavarians, Prussians, or Saxons, but as Germans. The dream of a unified German nation grew stronger, but who would lead it? The two most powerful German states were Austria and Prussia. The question of who would dominate a united Germany was the central political issue of the time. This rivalry set the stage for one of the most influential figures in German history. Enter Otto von Bismarck-Bliescher, a master of diplomacy and political strategy. Bismarck believed that German unification would not be achieved through speeches and votes, but through iron and blood. He wasn't a starry-eyed nationalist. He was a pragmatist who wanted to secure Prussia's dominance through a series of brilliant and calculated wars against Denmark, Austria, and finally France. He systematically dismantled all opposition. The decisive victory in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870–71 was the final step. The wave of patriotic fervor that followed allowed Bismarck to achieve his ultimate goal. In 1871, in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles, the historic seat of French power, the German princes proclaimed the Prussian king Wilhelm I as German emperor. The German Empire, or Deutsches Reich, was born. After centuries of division, Germany was finally a unified nation-state. This new empire was a powerhouse of industry, science, and military might, dramatically shifting the balance of power in Europe. This moment marked the culmination of a journey that began with scattered tribes in ancient forests. From the tribal migrations and clashes with Rome, through the era of Charlemagne and the fragmented Holy Roman Empire. To Bismarck's unification, the path was long and complex. This 3,000-year evolution, full of conflict, creativity, and change, shaped not only a nation but the course of world history. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through Germany's ancient roots. If you found this fascinating, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into history. See you next time.